Hurricane season 2021 is officially underway. All it takes is one storm to change your life forever. The historic 2020 hurricane season, one that battered the Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, the coastal bend was no exception. The impact of recent storms is still felt here in South Texas.
And Hurricane Hannah made landfall on Padre Island last July, and communities are still rebuilding after Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Hurricane season 2021 is officially underway. Are you ready?
From Chris 6 News, this is Plan, Prepare, Survive, a hurricane special. Brought to you by Conviva Care Center, Window World, Flint Hills Resources, and Gold Buyers of Texas.
Thank you for joining us for this special report, Plan, Prepare, Survive. I'm meteorologist Dale Nelson.
And I'm meteorologist Sharon Ray. Over the next hour, we're preparing you for the next storm. We'll show you how to protect your family and your home from the unexpected.
Here to help us break down everything you need to know is our team of experts, the Chris 6 weather team, meteorologist Bill Alexander, Juan Acuna, and Stephanie Lauber. Throughout our history, there have been a number of hurricanes that have ravaged our area and changed the course of the coastal bend. Let's take a look. Corpus Christi and the coastal bend, situated along the middle Texas coast adjacent to the Gulf of Mexico, are no strangers to tropical activity. While they don't happen every year, hurricanes are unwelcome visitors to the area, and they have been for many years. Here are the most notable hurricanes, starting with the 1916 Texas hurricane. Back then they didn't have names, so they just went by the year. After the 1916 hurricane, it was followed by the 1919 storm, then Carla in 1961. Then Beulah came along in 1967, and who could forget Celia in 1970? And then almost exactly 10 years later, Allen in 1980. These hurricanes were followed by Brett in 1999, Harvey in 2017, and Hannah just last year in 2020. Since the turn of the century, there have been three notable major hurricanes, that's a Category 3 or higher, to directly impact in or near Corpus Christi. They are the 1919 hurricane, followed by Celia in 1970 and Harvey in 2017. The 1919 storm had a 16-foot storm surge and killed 284 people, and is the primary reason we built a seawall along our bayfront. Celia, which made landfall here in 1970 on August 3rd, is the only time in the history of Corpus Christi that the eye of a hurricane has passed over the city. Celia produced wind gusts to 180 miles an hour at Horace Caldwell Pier in Port Aransas before the anemometer, which measures wind speed, broke. And the highest wind gust ever recorded in Corpus Christi was 161 miles an hour, and again, that was from Hurricane Celia. The damage was catastrophic, as anyone that lived here during that time will tell you. Finally, there was Harvey with 130 mile an hour sustained winds making landfall just 23 miles northeast of Corpus Christi, causing widespread catastrophic damage near its eye wall from Port Aransas to Rockport and inland to near Refugio. Once the storm weakened over land, it stalled in east central Texas, causing massive flooding in southeast Texas because of over 50 inches of rain there. This resulted in Harvey tying Katrina as the costliest tropical storm in U.S. history at $125 billion. Last year we had Hannah making landfall 60 miles south of Corpus Christi with 90 mile per hour winds. Hannah exposed the fact that even a minimal tropical system can be damaging if you are in the right front quadrant. Nearly all of the damage here was from the storm surge and wave action from Hannah that pounded area fishing piers and marinas and resulted in a considerable amount of damage in the millions of dollars. That included Bob Hall Pier. Ken Graham, director of the National Hurricane Center, says you shouldn't just measure how powerful a storm is by its category.
You know, you have a situation that a large, slow storm can produce an incredible amount of rainfall and storm surge, and it has nothing to do with that category. So even a Category 1 could produce storm surge of 10 to 15 feet if it's large enough and slow enough. So
on average, this area of the Texas coast is affected by a tropical system about once every 4 years. We take a direct hit from a hurricane about once every 14 years, and get hit by a major hurricane that's Category 3 or higher once every 25 years. All this activity is a vivid reminder that living near the coast, you must prepare every year as though we are going to get hit, as we have also had numerous tropical storms with winds of 39 to 73 miles an hour that did not have a chance to fully develop into hurricanes. They hit this area over the years as well. Being prepared and having a plan in place before a storm develops is the best way to survive these storms and these unwelcome visitors to our area.
During hurricane season, it's important for you to understand how a storm develops and become familiar with certain storm terms. This is the Atlantic Basin. It includes the North Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and of course, the Gulf of Mexico. When we talk about tropical development here in South Texas, this is where we keep a careful eye for storms. Throughout hurricane season, you'll hear our weather team talk about invest, tropical depressions, storms, cyclones, and hurricanes. But in order to understand the difference, let's talk about how these storms form in the first place. Now, as we enter the summer months, the ocean begins to warm. Those sea surface temperatures rise to the order of 82 degrees or more, and as droplets evaporate off the ocean surface, they rise high up in the atmosphere where they cool and condense into clouds. Eventually, these clouds grow into thunderstorms, and as the moist air continues to rise, cool, and condense, more thunderstorms develop. This creates low pressure at the surface, and at this point, we would call this cluster of thunderstorms a tropical disturbance. When the National Hurricane Center decides to investigate this area, we call it an invest. You might remember Invest 91L, for example, which happened just off our coast back in May. Now, at this point, if the tropical disturbance continues to become more organized, the area of low pressure will become stronger and a closed circulation will form. The thunderstorms begin to rotate counterclockwise around this center point, and that now makes this cluster of storms a tropical depression and officially a tropical cyclone. Tropical depressions get numbers like TD number 4. Up until now, the maximum sustained winds within a tropical depression are no more than 39 miles per hour. But if a tropical depression continues to strengthen and winds grow to 39 miles per hour up to 73 miles per hour, we now have a tropical storm on our hands, and this system gets a name. For example, Tropical Storm Ana happened back in May. If a tropical storm continues to strengthen and maximum sustained winds are 74 miles per hour or more, the system is now a hurricane. Hurricanes are rated in categories on the Saffir-Simpson wind scale, ranging from Category 1 to Category 5. But be aware, these categories are based solely on wind, and the category does not tell you about the other hazards within the hurricane. So take it from the director of the National Hurricane Center.
Here's the real takeaway. There's never been a Hurricane Justa. Never been a Hurricane Justa. So there's no such thing as Justa Category 1. Listen to those impacts. I think it's so important to listen to those values, and that's how you really can protect yourself and save your life and really keep your family safe. Listen to those impacts. I think it's real critical.
As you heard there from Director Ken Graham, when you are in the path of a storm, you need to take action. But do you know the difference between a watch and a warning? A watch means conditions are possible, where a warning means conditions are imminent. But the timing of these expected impacts is also important. So here's a breakdown. A tropical storm watch means that sustained winds of 39 miles per hour to 73 miles per hour are possible within the specified area within 48 hours. A tropical storm warning means that sustained winds of 39 miles per hour to 73 miles per hour are expected somewhere within the specified area within 36 hours. Now, we may be under a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch at the same time, and here's why. A hurricane watch means that sustained winds of 74 miles per hour or more are possible, and because hurricane prep can become difficult once winds reach tropical storm force, a hurricane warning is issued 48 hours before tropical storm force winds are expected. A hurricane warning means that sustained winds of 74 miles per hour or more are expected. Much like with a hurricane watch, a hurricane warning is issued 36 hours before tropical storm force winds are expected. Once a watch or warning is issued for our area, your hurricane plan goes into action. Be sure to know your risk and what you and your family will do when it's time to act.
We often think of hurricanes being just a coastal problem, but actually their impacts can be felt hundreds of miles inland, and the hazards are not the same for all areas. It doesn't need to be a major hurricane for significant impacts to occur. You want to find out what wind and water hazards could happen where you live and prepare now on how to handle them. Tropical cyclones bring a number of threats, including strong damaging winds, heavy rain, storm surge, tropical tornadoes, large waves, and rip currents. Storm surge is an abnormal rise of water generated by a storm's winds and can reach heights well over 20 feet and can span hundreds of miles of coastline. It is the #1 killer in landfalling tropical systems. The storm surge can travel several miles inland, especially along bays, rivers, and estuaries. Check the storm surge risk to see if your area could be inundated by the storm surge. Then check your city website to see if you are in a storm surge evacuation zone. Know which zone you are in and become familiar with the evacuation routes.
Just holding a gallon of water is heavy. So imagine multiplying that weight by thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And then that weight shoves into or crashes into your house. That much weight, that much mass, that much momentum shoves into your house. It would just knock it right off its foundation.
Flooding from heavy rains is the second leading cause of fatalities from landfalling tropical cyclones. Widespread torrential rains associated with these storms often cause flooding hundreds of miles inland. In fact, flooding is the major threat from tropical cyclones for people living inland. Flash flooding, which is a rapid rise in water levels, can occur quickly due to intense rainfall. Longer-term flooding on rivers and streams can persist for several days after the storm. Determine your flood risk and have a plan on where to go if flooding occurs. Tropical cyclones are known for their powerful winds, and they are not just confined to coastal areas. Hurricane-force winds can travel dozens of miles inland after a hurricane makes landfall, causing considerable structural damage and power outages that can last days, sometimes even weeks. The two most important steps to prepare for the wind is to strengthen your home and build a power outage supply kit. Hurricanes and tropical storms can also produce tornadoes. A tornado spawned by a tropical storm or hurricane usually develops quickly, sometimes with little warning. It is critical to have multiple ways of receiving alerts, such as tornado warnings, should there be a loss of power. Now is the time to review what to do if your area is put under a tornado warning so you can act quickly. Consider all of this your call to action to help minimize the impact of tropical cyclones on you and your loved ones. You need to determine now which dangers you are most likely to face and have a plan ready.
Yeah, it's interesting. Historically, 80% of fatalities, over 80%, it's water. So it's not just that storm surge right on the coast, but it's that inland rain as well. As we saw with Harvey, we've seen with so many of these storms where the inland threat is there as well. So that's something to pay attention for. You know, we spend so much time looking at just the cone. We look at where it's going, how strong the system's going to be. The other part, we have to look at where it's going. Is it going to stall out inland where it's going to produce that heavy rainfall? That's not an area you want to be in. There may be times where you only have to go out of the surge zone, maybe 10 or 15, 20 miles inland, and you're good. But there's other times, depending on the track, that you're going to be just in a dangerous situation there as you are on the coast. So watch out for that forecast and look for those details like that and those impacts, because it could be a lifesaver if you really understand what the system's going to do.
Coming up, Plan It Out will tell you how to come up with the best evacuation plan for you and your family and why you should act now.
Plus, make a list and check it twice, the essential items you will need whether you will hit the road or ride out the storm at home.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a hurricane special. Brought to you by these sponsors.
Oh gosh, I can't begin to put into words, and thank you for asking it, just how fortunate Corpus Christi was with Harvey. You really, really dodged the bullet, because if it would just move just a little bit more to the west or south, you would have took the brunt of it. And then you saw with Hannah, even with a relatively modest storm surge, you're only maybe 4 or 5 feet or so. Look how extensive the damage was with just that relatively small storm surge. Now imagine if you had a storm surge event that was like 10 or 15 feet, which would have happened if Harvey would have made a more direct approach on the Corpus Christi area. I can say this, had it struck Corpus directly head on, you'd still be rebuilding parts of the community to this day.
Before a storm hits, it's important that you and your family have an evacuation plan in place. There are several things you need to consider when you do your planning, but you need to act now. There are many recreational benefits to living near the coastline. We have beautiful sunrises and sunsets, but we know all too well that the open body of water that we live next to, known as the Gulf of Mexico, can stir up some mighty storms that can bring dangerous, even life-threatening hazards to our way of life. One of the most important pre-planning actions you can take for the hurricane season is to have an evacuation plan for you and your family.
If you have that family plan, you know your risk, you know the areas that you would have to leave if there's a storm surge threat, know where you're going to go. If you have all that set, it really lowers the stress level. So let's do that early so we're not overly stressing these systems.
First, if an evacuation order is given, have a family meeting and decide upon a location where you all know to go to, preferably in another town and away from the hazards the storm may be threatening, in case you are separated while evacuating. In choosing this, agree on a couple of potential meeting places that you and your family know well and have it be near an identifiable location such as a school or park. That way it's easier to remember. Also, don't count on only one route to get to that meeting spot. Down trees, power lines, flooding, and even washed out bridges all may be hazards that you could encounter while evacuating. Write down other roads and highways that you may be able to take safely to reach to your agreed upon meeting spot. Next, be sure to assemble a car emergency kit. Store these supplies in the trunk of your car with some essentials for the road so that way you don't have to worry about rushing to the store with everyone else trying to get those last-minute items. This emergency kit should include at least 2 gallons of fresh water, non-perishable snacks, blankets, a phone charger, local and regional road maps, garbage bags, toilet paper, paper towels, a gas can, jumper cables, and a tow line, to name a few. In addition, you'll want to have a separate backpack to house a flashlight and matching replacement batteries, a battery-powered radio, a supply of prescription medication, some cash, and an extra set of keys for your house and car. Finally, pack a bag for each of your family members that will have a change of clothes and a copy of your family evacuation plan. As your family changes and grows, your family evacuation plan should change too. Always be sure to have the supplies you need ready to go. One quick reminder, keep in mind to have a plan in place for your pets as well. Arrange a safe haven location well in advance of a potential evacuation, as many public shelters and hotels will not allow pets inside. Having your pets microchipped will also help to reunite your pet with you in the unfortunate event that you all are separated. With any luck, you won't need these action plans, but in the event that you do, having these preparation plans and items in place will increase your chances of getting through the event safely.
Being prepared brings peace of mind.
There are several supplies that you must have if you will be sheltering at home. When a storm hits, you need to have enough supplies to last for several days, so it's important to make a list and check it twice. Experts recommend you have the following: at least 1 gallon of water per person per day, a 3-day supply of non-perishable foods such as canned or pouched food. Of course, you can't forget about a manual can opener. And if you have babies at home, it's important you have baby formula, baby food, bottles, and diapers. Make sure you also have special items for the elderly that may need these type of things. When you go out to purchase supplies, make sure you prepare a first aid kit, which should include Band-Aids, pain reliever, such as aspirin and bandages. It's also recommended you have hygiene products, including bleach, which can be used to purify water. You'll want to have soap, toothpaste, and other personal hygiene products, along with toilet paper, trash bags, and insect repellent.
Another thing you will want to do now is make copies of important documents in order to avoid any difficult situations after the disaster. You'll want to keep the following in a waterproof bag: IDs, driver licenses, birth records, social security cards, passports. And it is also recommended that you make copies of your health insurance and prescription cards, banking information, important telephone numbers, property deeds, and insurance documents.
A vital part of when planning for a hurricane is knowing what evacuation routes you need to take.
Juan Acuna has a look at those routes.
Planning out an evacuation route is a vital part of the hurricane planning process. If you make the decision to actually leave when one of these storms threatens the coastal bend, it'll help ease your mind, especially if time is running out. Now, if you plan to evacuate, you want to watch out for these signs that will help guide you out of the harm's way, especially if one makes its way into the coastal bend. Now, the city of Corpus Christi is divided into 5 evacuation zones. That zone you live in will determine which evacuation route you'll take. Let's take a closer look at those. First, if you live along the coast, do not take I-35 as that parallels the coastline. It is important to find a way to get to I-37 away from the coast. Let's start with Zone A. That includes Padre Island residents. If you live in this zone, you would take SPID to I-37 north out of the danger zone. Zone B includes Flower Bluff and the majority of the north side of Corpus Christi. Residents of this zone would also take Interstate 37 right out of town. Zone C includes the south side of Corpus Christi, downtown, and northwest Corpus Christi. Residents of the south side would take South Staples, which becomes FM 2444, to Highway 286 south. From there, you take FM 70 west to Bishop. You can also take Weber, which becomes FM 43, out to Driscoll. Residents of downtown and the north side of the city would simply take Interstate 37 out of town. Residents of central Corpus Christi and some parts of the south side, Zone D, will take SPID to Interstate 37 or Weber Road to Highway 43 towards Driscoll. Zone E residents, which includes people who live in the west and northwest side of Corpus Christi, will take Ayers to FM 43 towards Driscoll. Now, if you make that all-important decision to evacuate the area, plan to leave early and prepare for a longer than expected drive time. Take along food, water, medications, and be sure your vehicle is fully gassed up. Once you've evacuated, wait for the all clear from the city emergency officials before attempting to return to your home.
We tend to evacuate in this country due to storm surge. And so we have these evacuation zones that are preset ahead of time based off storm surge. They're often lettered or numbered, A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. So find out ahead of time if you're in one of these evacuation zones, because if an evacuation order goes up during a hurricane and you're scrambling around trying to figure out whether or not this impacts you, that's a lot of wasted time.
Still ahead, no place like home. A step-by-step guide to making sure your property and your valuables are protected during a storm.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a hurricane special. Brought to you by these sponsors.
Hi, meteorologist Bill Alexander. This section of hurricane season 2021 deals with hurricane insurance issues, the things you need to work out long before hurricane season gets underway. Basically 5 main issues we'll be dealing with. Reviewing your hurricane insurance policy with your agent, now probably in person, and evaluating your needs for flood insurance, something you probably hadn't thought about much. Number 3, make a home inventory. We'll be talking about that in detail on how to do it. Also gathering copies of those vital insurance policies and saving your insurance company's contact information. All this critical information you're going to be scrambling for in case that hurricane arrives and you have to evacuate or protect yourself. Number 1, review your insurance policy with your agent, the one that helped you put it together. Call your agent and review the coverage. Do you have replacement or actual costs of the value of your home and the coverage of your property? Now, this includes whether you own your home or it's renter's insurance. All those things are included. What are your deductibles? Now, this is not just homeowner's insurance, car insurance. It's insurance on property, including recreational vehicles, boats, and things like that, which we'll cover under a separate section here. Number 2, evaluate your need for flood insurance. All this information is available from the National Flood Insurance Program. Are you in a flood-prone area? They can tell you that, whether you should get that vital flood information and insurance. Number 3, make a home inventory. Modern technology is wonderful doing this. Use a smartphone and create a video of your household belongings. Take your time. Cover everything in every room, every storage area, every closet, so you know exactly what you've got. Make sure to include both indoor and outdoor items, as well as things in the basement and the attic. Number 4, gather copies of your insurance policies. Keep the copies in a dry, safe place, and keep copies that will make them accessible and transportable. Number 5, have your insurance coverage or company contact information. This is that 1-800 number. It's easy to get to. Put it in your contacts and save a hard copy and save yourself a lot of heartache later. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll have some more vital information to keep you safe, keep you alive through hurricane season 2021.
If you live in coastal Texas, you got to carry flood insurance, just period. I mean, there's just no debating this. If the storm surge doesn't soak you, sometimes the rain gets you. And a lot of people don't realize that their regular homeowner's insurance policy doesn't cover flood. So if you're not carrying flood insurance and you flood, you get an inch of water in your house and have to rip up the floors. That's out of pocket. So that's going to hit hard. It's very expensive to do that type of work these days.
With insurance in place, you need to make sure your home is ready to receive the full force of a storm. Stephanie Lauber has some recommendations.
Your home is arguably your biggest investment, but is it ready for the next storm? Here are some tips to help you get prepared.
Start on the outside. Take a walk around your home and look out for any items that might need a little bit of handiwork, such as gutters, eaves and soffits, and your roof. Clean up debris and leaves that could clog your gutters. Also, be on the lookout for leaks. Check your roof line for any minor gaps or cracks. A little bit of caulking goes a long way and can help keep your home dry and water out. Don't forget about your landscaping. Be sure to trim any tree limbs or shrubs. These can easily cause avoidable damage in windy conditions. Have a plan to stow away any patio furniture or tie those items down. Recreational items like basketball hoops and trampolines should also be secured. And don't forget your outside decor. You don't want those items to become projectiles in strong winds. Did you know the weakest part of your home is usually the garage door? You'll want to make sure the door is wind or impact rated, which means it's better equipped to withstand strong winds. Look for a sticker on the inside that specifies its rating. And it's a good idea to check the other doors and entry points of your home. Replace any tattered or worn weather stripping for a good waterproof seal. What about your windows? If you don't have hurricane shutters or windows with impact glass, plywood is a good option to board up your home and can be reused year after year. And don't waste time taping your windows. That won't protect you. It just wastes time and could actually be more dangerous. If the glass breaks, the tape could make larger shards, posing a safety hazard. Plus, once the window is blown out, you'll have nothing to keep the flying debris and rain out of your home. Now let's head inside. You'll want to take inventory of all your valuables. Jewelry, TVs and laptops, and other big-ticket items are a good place to start. The easiest way to document your belongings is to take pictures on your phone. You can keep a record of your items by emailing photos to yourself or uploading to a cloud service such as Dropbox or Google Drive. Head back outside and take photos of your home and property. Did you recently repair your fence? Keep receipts from any maintenance work as proof of condition. Having a thorough record of your home status before the storm will be a huge help in the event you need to file an insurance claim. And whether you rent or own your home, make sure your insurance is up to date. Now your home is hurricane ready.
We are giving you a lot of information, so let's take a look at what we've discussed so far.
Remember, one of the most important pre-planning actions you can take for the hurricane season is to have an evacuation plan for you and your family. This includes having a family meeting and deciding upon a location where you all know to go to, preferably in another town and away from the hazards a storm may be threatening, in case you get separated while evacuating. Don't forget to assemble a car emergency kit and have a plan in place for your pets. Make sure you have disaster supplies, which include at least a gallon of water per person per day. 3-day supply of non-perishable food such as canned or pouch food. You will also need to prepare a first aid kit. While preparing for a storm, you will need to remember to make copies of any important documents you will need afterwards, like driver's licenses and social security cards. This hurricane season, make sure your insurance will cover any damage your house may suffer. There's 5 main things you should do. Review your policy. Evaluate your need for flood insurance. Make a home inventory list. Gather your insurance policies and save your insurance company's contact number.
You will be able to find all this information any time of the day. Just go to kristv.com.
Preparing your boat for a hurricane, the steps you need to take to protect your investment. Plus, helping others, how you can sign up with the Red Cross to help during a disaster. Thank you for watching our Hurricane Preparedness Special, Plan, Prepare, Survive.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, our Hurricane Special. Brought to you by these sponsors.
Texas Department of Public Safety prepares for hurricane season throughout the year. DPS officials say the agency works closely with local governments and offices of emergency management. According to DPS, troopers help with evacuations and assessing damage after a storm.
There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of people involved, and getting the resources into the field and where it's needed the most.
DPS agrees that the best thing you can do to make sure you and your family are safe is to prepare ahead of time. And with hurricane season now underway, the Red Cross continues asking for volunteers to help staff its shelters. Volunteers will help with a number of tasks, including working reception, distributing meals, and working in dormitories. The Red Cross is also looking for disaster responders to provide immediate care to storm victims.
90% of our ability to deliver the service we do is based on volunteers. So volunteers is truly essential to our organization.
If you'd like to sign up, visit our website, kristv.com.
So we at the Hurricane Center are providing that big picture, where the storm is going to go. We're really looking at what the storm surge will be, but the actual details, you start getting down to neighborhoods and specifics. That comes from the weather forecast offices, and you have a great one in Corpus Christi over at the airport. It's a great group over there, and it's interesting because we're always talking. Here at the Hurricane Center, we have video calls with the forecast office. We collaborate that forecast. We talk about those impacts, and we actually team up on the messaging. So we really try to have the same message. And during the storm, we do hundreds of interviews with television stations, and we're talking about these impacts. So we're all saying the same thing. It's so important for preparedness. And we brief the emergency managers as well as the local forecast office does with emergency managers. So as a result, it's interesting. We really all try to say the same thing. And in the end, if it's a clear message and the same message, I think it's better easier and better for the public to make those decisions if it's consistent.
If you own a boat, it's important that you act fast to protect it.
Bill Alexander has the details.
Recreational and commercial boating is a vital and essential component of life here in the Coastal Bend, and preparing in advance of a landfalling hurricane makes all the difference. I spoke with Doyle Thomas of West Marine about the steps that need to be taken to ensure the safety of your investment.
You're always out of time. Start early, have a plan.
Commercial and recreational boats are subject to the rages of a hurricane, and without proper preparation can be lost. Follow the recommendations of experienced boaters, including mooring wisely, strengthening your mooring, reducing windage, bringing your boat inland if possible, and setting multiple anchors if allowed. Also, having a floating dock is very useful, and if not, use longer lines to prevent swamping. Most of all, stay informed of the latest weather information. Other vital details can be found at boatus.hurricane.preparation.
After the break, some tips you need to know after the storm in order to protect yourself.
Hurricane season 2021 is officially underway. All it takes is one storm to change your life forever. The historic 2020 hurricane season, one that battered the Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, the Coastal Bend was no exception. The impact of recent storms is still felt here in South Texas.
And Hurricane Hannah made landfall on Padre Island last July, and communities are still rebuilding after Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Hurricane season 2021 is officially underway. Are you ready?
From Chris 6 News, this is Plan, Prepare, Survive, a Hurricane Special. Brought to you by Conviva Care Center, Window World, Flint Hills Resources, and gold buyers of Texas.
Welcome back. Once a storm hits, safety should remain your top priority.
After the storm has passed, this is what you need to do. Wait until an area is declared safe before re-entering. Watch Chris 6 or check our website christv.com, Chris 6 social media pages, or listen to NOAA Weather Radio. Watch for flooded roads, and if you encounter one, make sure you turn around, don't drown. Stay on firm ground, as standing water may be electrically charged from power lines, and watch for poisonous snakes. Watch for fallen objects in the road, downed electrical wires, and weakened walls, bridges, roads, and sidewalks that might collapse. Once you are home, check all of your appliances for damage along with gas, water, and electrical lines. Never use candles or other open flames indoors. Inside, use a flashlight to inspect for damage. Make sure officials say it is safe to use tap water before drinking or preparing food. If you have a generator, make sure you follow the standard electric code and follow the owner's manual from the manufacturer to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning and other hazards.
You have to always remember it really truly is about the dangers of water. Please protect yourselves from the dangers of water. If the local officials tell you to get out of there, you have to get out of there and protect yourself. So let's remember that over 80% of fatalities is from the water, and it's not just on the coast, it's well inland as well.
Still ahead, a look at the 2021 hurricane season outlook. Stay with us.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a hurricane special. Brought to you by these sponsors.
So it's good that people understand that it's not good to be at the coastline during a hurricane, because that is the most dangerous area. But what people often don't realize is storm surge can penetrate miles inland, especially if there's a river or tributary nearby. Those rivers and tributaries are basically superhighways for the water, the ocean water, to travel inland. It's just easier to move up a river than it is over land, where friction can, basically mitigate it. So don't be deceived and think storm surge is only a coastal phenomenon. It's worse at the coast, absolutely, but it's not confined to the coastline. So if you live near a river, or you live near a bay or estuary that connects to the ocean, you're probably pretty vulnerable to storm surge.
2021 will be an above normal Atlantic hurricane season.
Let's take a look at what to expect this season. Every year, everyone seems to want to know what the upcoming hurricane season looks like. And even though the information is not very useful because it doesn't say where or when a storm will hit before it actually forms, it is available. And here it is for 2021, the seasonal hurricane forecast for the Atlantic Basin, which consists of the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean. It is once again expected to be an above normal season, but nowhere near the record-setting level of last year of 2020. That year saw 30 named storms, an all-time record, of which 13 were hurricanes, and 6 of those turned into major Category 3 hurricanes. It is worth noting that the average hurricane season has been updated and now stands at 14 named storms, of which 7 turn into hurricanes and 3 are major hurricanes. Because of all the uncertainty surrounding seasonal outlooks, you have to prepare each year as though we are going to get hit. There will be some periods when we go maybe 5 years without anything making a direct hit, and other periods where we may be affected and threatened several years in a row. The bottom line, always be prepared and have a plan. Now, the reasons for the active season have to do with El Nino and La Nina being neutral. In other words, neither one. We're kind of in between those two major factors. They're non-existent right now, with the possibility of La Nina returning later this season. Other favorable factors for this year's activity include warmer than normal sea surface temperatures and the tropical Atlantic Basin having weaker tropical trade winds.
It's being ready for anything and everything, right? Because you look at 30 named storms, the most we've ever named in 170 years of record keeping. 2020 was just relentless. The word relentless seems to be my word of the day today, and as we're doing these, because that's what 2020 was, and that was during a pandemic. So we had multiple hazards. So if you think about it, we got through it. We did it. We got the information out. We were successful. So let's get ready for 2021. I think it's going to be above average once again. It's probably going to be a busy season. So that early preparedness becomes everything to get through the storm.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a hurricane special. Brought to you by these sponsors.
Don't forget, all this information is just a click away. Just go to christv.com.
And stay up to date with the latest information. Just download the Chris 6 News app. No matter what happens this hurricane season, you can expect us to be right here to guide you through it.
On air and online. We want to thank you for joining us for this special presentation, Plan, Prepare, Survive.